Hello, and welcome back to the 2 Cents Podcast.
What are we talking about this week, James?
The thing that everybody's been hoping we talked about, money trauma.
We've owed this episode a couple weeks now.
Yeah, and sorry for keeping you guys waiting, so we'll go ahead and get into it soon.
We've been busy. Yeah, we've got a lot of topics that we want to cover. Also, Thank you so much to everyone who gave us feedback on our last episode. We asked you what you think about us doing 2 episodes a week and shorter episodes instead of the longer ones. And I'm so thrilled that a lot of you agree that we should do 2 episodes a week and that you're okay with us going a little bit shorter. Some people were talking about that they like it being longer so that they can put it in the background while they're working out or doing errands. And so I think us having 2 episodes a week that are a little bit shorter will meet the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and every now and again, we might do a little bit longer of an episode too, so therefore we can meet what everybody wants.
Actually, I guess we can kind of spill a little bit of tea, like a little secret, is that our goal is in the new year, when we're doing 2 episodes a week, we want 1 episode to be an interview with somebody, some people, a couple. You get where we're going with this?
Yeah, so we'll see what that looks like. But first, a word from our sponsor.
If you haven't heard of Public, they're an investing platform where you can invest in stocks, options, bonds, ETFs, crypto, and alternative assets all in one place. We recently invested $1,000 in a public bond account where our money is invested into a portfolio of 10 investment grade and high yield corporate bonds. We locked in a 6.61% yield, meaning it's not going to fluctuate. It is locked in, and we're going to hold those bonds until they reach maturity to maximize on the returns, cashing in on regular interest payments while we wait.
If you're interested in learning more about Public and want to lock in a 6% or higher yield with a bond account, visit public.com/STS, and thanks again to Public for sponsoring our pod.
Brought to you by Public Investing, member FINRA plus SIPC. The yield is the average annualized yield to worst across all 10 bonds in the bond account before fees as of October 2nd, 2024. Your yield to worst is not locked in until the time of purchase. A bond's yield to worst is not guaranteed. You can earn less if you do not hold the bonds to maturity or the issuer defaults. Not an investment recommendation. All investing involves risk. Visit public.com/disclosures/bond-account for more info.
And welcome back to the pod.
So we're talking about money trauma today, what we've both gone through, bring to the table, how we work through it as a couple. I think you should go first.
Yeah, and we can definitely talk about things like how it affects us now too, what we've learned from it as well.
Yeah.
So, we can start with me. For all of you to know, I was born south side of Chicago. My mom was 16, eventually ended up having 7 kids, so I was the oldest of 7. We grew up in poverty, lower income, homeless a bunch of times, stuff like that. But from that, I got a pretty big money trauma from, and that's my mom. She used to pretty much anytime when I got money, like birthdays, Christmas, stuff like that. I don't know, a lot of you guys are following with this, but it's I'll just hold on to it until you need it type of thing. And that $10, $20, I'd never see again, which is understandable. But, as a kid, hearing, I'll hold your $10. And then you go, oh, can I get my $10? And you go, what $10?
Yeah. You can only imagine, though, what your mother with so many kids, that $20 matters. It pays for the bus.
Exactly.
It pays for bread. It pays for food on the table.
Yeah, and that's the difference. I mean, as a kid, you don't understand that. You just go, well, it was here. I gave it to you. You had it. And, so where did it go?
Yeah.
Now, as an adult looking back, obviously, yes, that few dollars went towards, whatever the thing was, whether it was bills, rent, or even food. The teaching that I got from that was originally, just don't lend out money to people, it made me very untrustworthy when it came to people and money, which is understandable as well. But what I actually learned from that through our relationship is that I don't lend out money with the expectations of getting it back now.
Yeah.
That's what I've ultimately learned.
Yeah, my parents always taught me, don't give out money that you want back. You know, you should always, if you're going to give it out with the expectation that you won't receive it back.
Yeah, and by all means.
But I don't know about that. I understand where you're coming from, that, it definitely would breed distrust.
Yeah, but I mean, I never lend out, too much to the point where I'm I'm definitely going to miss this. $10 here and there, I completely understand, because that $10 made a whirlwind of a difference to my mom, as I was growing up. So $10 here and there to, cousins or whoever, because they need help with something, I can easily do with no expectations of getting it back. Now, with that, that does not mean hit me up for $10 because I'm not giving it out to
Well,
everybody.
that's actually making me think that we could do a whole episode on family asking for money because
Oh, I can do a whole episode.
yeah, we have definitely some
Yeah.
experiences there since quote unquote becoming famous. That has changed a lot. But yeah, no, I mean, I do get where you're coming from. Like I'm envisioning a 10-year-old James,
Oh man,
getting money for your
I was
birthday,
ugly
and
too, so
I doubt it. But yeah, no, I'd be hurt if I was a young kid, and my money got taken away. And I think that's where we both have very different experiences growing up, that you bring a lot of different experiences to the table where I didn't have that experience.
yeah.
Like,
What was yours like?
I mean, when I got 20 euros, I was going to say euros because I grew up overseas and I'll get to that. But when I got money for my birthdays and stuff, I would put it in a piggy bank, and I'd stock
Mm,
it up, but I never had it taken away from me. So yeah, I'd be upset about that
yeah, yeah.
too.
I was as a kid, but then you learn to get over it pretty quickly. It's whatever.
Trauma.
All right. Uh,
But yeah, no, I think you do a really good job of like trusting me with the money. I'd say, I'm
yeah.
probably the one that manages the
Get the
accounts, has the
finances.
most oversight. Yeah, that's just
Yeah,
that's my natural skill in the relationship that I bring to the table. So I appreciate you trusting me.
I try. No, I do.
Okay, so my money trauma. I bring a completely different experience to the table. I grew up upper middle class, never had a want for anything. I never worried about food being on the table. I was incredibly spoiled. I had one sister and I just remember getting lots of presents for St. Nicholas. And I'll explain that I'm Belgian. My mom is Belgian, my dad's American. My parents were both diplomats, so I actually grew up overseas. I traveled to 6 different countries before high school and lived in all those different countries for like 2 to 3 years each. So I had euros and we didn't have Santa Claus, but we practiced St. Nicholas. And I digress. I was a very privileged child. But that doesn't mean that you don't have your own set of money trauma when you
yeah,
have
definitely.
money. And people that have a lot of money sometimes are not the smartest with their money. So I like to think that despite being pretty privileged, I have a good set of, financial wisdom from my parents. The one thing that I definitely inherited from my mother, and what's really interesting to me growing up that I've tried to learn a lot from my parents, is that they had a lot of money because my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but my dad worked for the State Department. He was making six figures, back then, decades ago, 2 or 3 decades ago, making six figures
It
went a
meant
lot
yeah, it
further
meant a
than
lot.
yeah, like you could definitely support a family of four. And there's also things to keep in mind that when we were overseas, when you work for the State Department, they pay for your housing. So not only was he making like his salary, but like our housing was paid for, our education was paid for to an extent. So either way, they were able to save up a lot of money. And they really are the definition of like low risk, very low risk, high savings mindset. And my mother is very much that way. That I remember being frustrated growing up that we had money. Like I knew that we had money. I knew we weren't poor. Like, but my mother never bought anything full price. Like refused if we went shopping and I brought her something, the first thing she'd say is it on sale? And if it wasn't on sale, she wouldn't even bother looking at it. And I completely understand talking about this. This is very much first world problems. So like don't come at me. I'm just talking about my experiences and I can't, that's my experience. That's what I grew up with. But to this day, it has definitely stuck with me that I do buy things that are not on sale if I really, really like it, but there's just this profound guilt that I have
Yeah.
if I buy it and it's not on sale. And more often than not, I just won't buy anything unless it is on sale. Like I don't feel good about the purchase unless I got a really good deal on it. Like I just bought a winter jacket and I showed it to you when we came here and I was like, "Look at my jacket. I got it on sale."
For those of you who remember the last episode, or not the last one, the roasted episode, yeah.
The
Tho-
financial roast.
right. Those packages that she get, I can tell you, all of those things are usually on sale.
Yeah, I love a good deal, and I'm very good at finding a deal.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily trauma, it's just a great skill that I got from my mother. But that the guilt that comes with making purchases, if they're full price or expensive, I always just wonder, like, what would my mother think? Would
Yeah.
my mother approve of this purchase, or is this, indulgent? Is it frivolous? So I put a lot of thought into my purchases. And so I kind of struggle with thinking about whether or not it's trauma or a positive result of a more strict financial upbringing, that I have somewhat good financial spending habits, but they still weigh on me emotionally.
Yeah.
And so I try to, when it comes to birthday presents and stuff, when I see things that I'm like, I know he'd like that. And if it's not on sale, I just kind of try to power through, and I try to make sure that purchases are met, especially if they're not on sale, that they're bought with intention
Yeah,
and
no, definitely.
special.
And I agree with that because my second trauma kind of relates to that in the same sense, through the process of, growing up and learning all of the things that we went through, like the reasonings behind that and stuff. I would say that I'm kind of in the same boat as far as, like making sure that whenever I buy things for people, like it's very meaningful or stuff like that. And with that, my second money trauma is that I spend a lot of money on like experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't have much. So necessarily having material items never really, you know, been my thing. Like I don't really care to really have stuff physical, but I
Mhm.
care about the experiences.
Mhm.
So I can buy, a movie ticket for $100 and like that's a great experience. Or
Mhm.
I could spend $300 on going to this park,
What movie
with
ticket is $100?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is it
This
Wicked Live?
that's what it feels
It's
like
like Broadway.
nowadays. Like tickets are crazy. But no,
Yeah,
like
no, I know what you
yeah,
mean
like
though.
I'd rather spend $300 on an experience than $100 on an item.
Yeah, I think that really, you talking about that as a money trauma is so interesting to me, because I see that play out in real time with your daughters. Because
Yeah.
your daughters will get anything out of you. First of all, like, they know you're a sucker. They
I am.
know it, and they know I'm not going to fight them. Like, I'm trying to be the voice of reason usually with them, but like, I know that, like, when they say, I want to go ride, the carousel, or can we go get a candy apple? Like, those are things that my parents would have said no, but you being with the mindset of like, I didn't have those experiences growing up and I want to give it back to my children. Every single time they want to do something, you say yes.
Yeah, and I know like that's definitely the case, and I know that about myself too, and that's because, like you said, it's the I didn't do this or I didn't have this as a kid, and like I think that those things are very important when it comes to the developmental space of children. Like how they develop relationships, how they develop their social behaviors and stuff like that. So any opportunity that I give or that I have to give them more than what I've had, I always take that.
Mhm.
Whether it's invested in the sport that they want to play for this year. To me, I'm like, hell yeah, I'll cough up 5 G's if I need to.
We love our girls in sports.
Although I know that you may only be doing this for this year, and like
Mhm.
the one thing that I always tell them is never quit.
Mhm.
So like if you don't like a sport, you don't have to do it, but like finish it out for the rest of the year.
Mhm.
But with that, like I'm gonna give you the experiences in that sport that I never had to the
Mhm.
best of my abilities.
Yeah, and I think you do a really good job of that. So it's definitely a little bit of trauma coming in
Yeah,
there,
that
but
a lot of trauma.
they benefit from it.
Right, right. They get the good end of it. So
Similarly, to experiences as a trauma for you, I kind of have a similar one. But I guess it's less like learned from when I was a kid. From, the time I started going to school, my parents have just stressed how important education is. It's always been the most important thing. They didn't care about sports, when I was in high school and stuff. And it was always education, 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 but not at a price. Like, when I was overseas, I usually had to go to international schools, which were private because, there weren't many international schools that spoke English in Kazakhstan. Um, which is one of the places that I lived. But when we moved to the United States, despite, being upper middle class, my parents put me in public school. And I don't even remember having any conversation with them about that. I didn't want to go to
It just
private school.
happened.
It just happened. And so I think in that sense, me being okay with going to public school ties into a little bit of the trauma that when I was overseas, I felt so disconnected from my American upbringing, my American identity because I was overseas, so I wasn't even that close to my Belgian identity, but I was closer to that than American. And I remember just watching all these movies of like the rom-coms, of the 2000s, of the girls in school and the girls going to college and like that lifestyle. So when we moved to the United States, I was so looking forward to it. Like I wanted all those experiences.
Yeah.
So I was excited to go to public school because I was like, I'm going to a public American high school. This is amazing. And then when it came to college, I had no doubt in my mind I wanted to go to a 4-year school because, like, if I'm being fully honest, I wanted the college
Yeah, the college
experience.
experience,
I wanted
everybody
to party.
does.
I wanted to have friends. I wanted to experience that also because my parents were very strict. So I didn't really go to parties in high school. So I wanted that freedom. But my parents were very tight with money though. And so they told me and my sister to go to community college. And,
Yeah, because it'll
looking
save
back,
some
it
money.
would save money. And not only that, it's so annoying and dumb for me to look back on this and feel like, man, I was such a brat. But I also got a full ride honors scholarship to Northern Virginia Community College, which is
Whoop,
very
whoop.
rare. They didn't have that many. And so not only was I going to save a lot of money going to a community college first and then transferring to 4-year, I got those 2 years basically free, full ride. So I saved a ton of money. And I think it was because I was still kind of like in their household and not on my own yet and didn't really have a lot of independence, still finding my ground. And we had just moved to the DC area. So I didn't know anybody. I was kind of like
Yeah.
really dependent on them still. I decided to go to community college, but as soon as it was time for me to transfer, I was looking at the most expensive schools. Like I was trying to get into Harvard, I was trying to go to NYU, I was trying to go to Columbia, I was just trying to get out of the area, and eventually I actually ended up applying to Georgetown. Very great school, really a lot of prestige with that name that I wanted to have it with my career. I thought that it
Yeah.
would set me
Yeah.
up, but I just kinda glazed past the finances of it all because I wanted the experience. I was still chasing that, and I also thought that in chasing that and that being part of the experience, that loans and debt, from my understanding, was kinda just part of the experience. Like,
Yeah.
that getting a student loan was part of what you do when you go to school. That's kinda what everybody has. And it was such a miscalculated, misinformed opinion because I ended up having to take out a private loan. There was no way I was ever going to get it forgiven or any way compared to a public loan. So private loan, I was on my own, and I also had a 13% interest rate on that loan.
Woo.
Yes, but I didn't really bat an eye when it came down to taking out that loan because I was so dead set on going to Georgetown. And
Right.
then when I went, and I don't want to trash Georgetown, Hoya Saxa, very proud. I'm a very proud graduate. The school is amazing. But when I was there, I had a less enjoyable experience in my last 2 years of college than I had hoped to have. And there were several times I wanted to drop out. There's a lot of reasons for that.
Do you believe that has something to do with the fact that those first 2 years of college you spent that at community
Yeah, I
versus
think it almost reinforced it that I, like, doubled down on not caring about the price because I was just so desperate to have the experience. And then
Mhm.
it ended up not being, like, everything that I hoped for, so I ended up graduating with, like, $20,000 in private loans and not super happy with my college experience and looking back and being like, I coulda done this for a lot cheaper somewhere else and had the same outcome."
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you live and you learn, and so that's kinda where I don't think it's money trauma from my family or my upbringing, it's more so, well, it's a little bit of the upbringing.
It's a
It's
li
like
it's there.
chasing this life that you see in the movies, but then
Yeah.
you get there and you're like, "I didn't know it was this expensive. I didn't know it was gonna be this way, and I kinda wish I had a do-over, but no regrets, and if I hadn't gone to Georgetown, I wouldn't have met you."
Correct. Look at that.
But all of that to say, to this day, from that experience, I have a hard time justifying paying a lot of money for education because I think that
Mm.
from my experience, like part of my issue when I was at Georgetown was I wanted to start my own business and I felt like being in college held me back. So now whenever I'm like, I need to learn this, I don't look at, what kind of program do I need to do to get a certificate in this to validate that I know it. Let me go out and get the experience, validate that I care about it, and then I'll look at the certificate if I need to. But like, I'm not interested in going back to school.
Yeah, no, definitely same. I mean, you already know what my career upbringing is like. 17, joined the military because I was like, I don't want to do school. I don't. It's not that I didn't care for school. It's just that I saw something in the Marine Corps that I was like, that's something that I'm interested in.
Mhm.
I don't need a degree for that, so let me just get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that the military wasn't the
I
military
know.
because it's a great the outcome is great. Like, you get to go somewhere for 4 years, and you can get a degree while you're
Yeah,
there, you
it's
get
a
taken
trade
care of,
ultimately.
but what you have to do and what you have to the potential trade-off there to me is where I pump the brakes. But, I think that you joining the military helped you create a great life for yourself.
Cause look at me now. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Not me.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting to reflect on our money traumas and see how do we feel about it to this day, and are we still struggling with it? Are there things we can do to work on it? It's just important to be aware.
Yeah, no, and I definitely think that like figuring out what those things are and like how your life now has developed because of it
Mhm.
helps give you an outlook on things that you still need to change. By all means, I still look at some of my past trauma and I'm like, I know that that still affects me today. And in these ways is how it affects me. So how can I alter the way that I view these things so that it doesn't trigger that trauma?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love the way you look at that.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good to, dive back deep into us as individuals as well as a couple. So,
Yeah. Speaking of which, as we wrap up this episode, I think we have a potential new update to our family happening this week.
yes,
We'll
yes.
see. TBD.
Fingers crossed. By the time this episode comes out, it'll already happened. We'll be adding another puppy to our family.
Not full time. We are fostering.
Fostering. Yes, that's the
We're
difference.
fostering.
He'll be treated the same exact way, but yes, we are looking to foster now. We already have 4 pets in our home, and we would love to open it up to another one, but at the same time, we are still trying to keep in mind of Quinn's current state as well as like how we manage handling a business as well as a home and
Yeah.
our babies and stuff like that. So I feel like fostering is a really good way for us to be able to dip our toes in there and be
Yeah.
able to help out at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think I'm interested in getting another dog like full time, like adding another one because it's a handful right now. But having a foster, like we have the time, we have the ability. It's just I don't think we can make the long term commitment right now with
Yeah,
Quinn.
with Quinn.
Quinn is kind of dicey with her health and stuff, so I didn't want to go all in on adding another dog to the family. I just think that with the resources we have, we are here for the holidays. We have a great home. We have awesome pets that are open to other dogs that if we can open our dog to a home that would otherwise
Open our
be
home to a dog.
what?
You said open our dog to a
Oh.
home.
If we can open our home to a dog that over the holidays especially, who
Especially
might be spending the holidays
in a
in a
kennel.
kennel, in a
Yeah.
shelter, I think that's something that we should do, it's not as crazy as being like, "Let's get another dog," and fully go in,
Or
but we
two
can
cats.
we can aff we can do it, we can afford it, and I think that it's a great way to give back.
Yeah, definitely.
So we might have another dog living with us soon, but we'll see.
Yeah, so look for updates on that. If you guys aren't following us on social media, please do.
Mhm.
Make sure you guys drop a like,
Mhm.
subscribe, comment, do all of that. Let us know your 2 cents. Let us know some of your money trauma as well.
Yeah, let us know your money traumas. And also, really quick note, next Wednesday is Christmas, so our episode will not be coming out on Christmas, but it will be coming out the following day on the 26th. So we'll still be around the next week. You won't miss an episode from us, but it'll just be a day later. But okay, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.